So, back on February 4th, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA, put out this proposed airworthiness directive, 26001R1. Now, this is a really critical update for the super common CFM56 engine family, and it has a direct impact on flight safety and, of course, regulatory compliance. So, let's break down exactly what you need to know.
First things first, just a quick reminder for everyone. An airworthiness directive, or AD, well, it's not just a friendly suggestion. It is a mandatory, legally enforceable rule. It's put in place to fix a specific unsafe condition, and complying with these is absolutely essential to keep an aircraft safe and airworthy.
All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to walk through the directive's overview, get into the unsafe condition that triggered it, and see exactly which engines are on the hook. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the required technical actions, sum up the operational impact, and finish up with the key things you as an operator have to do.
Okay, let's get started with the big picture here. This proposed directive from EASA is laser-focused on a very specific problem inside the high-pressure turbine section of the CFM56 engine.
So why the big fuss? Why was this directive even issued? Well, it all comes down to a potential chain reaction of events that could, honestly, lead to a very, very serious failure. Let's dig into that root cause.
It all starts with a pretty standard maintenance task, replacing the honeycomb on the high-pressure turbine inner stationary seal. The problem? It turns out a specific batch of these replacement seals might start shedding material after the repair. Now, this material doesn't just disappear. It travels through the engine, causing damage and even starting cracks on a completely different part, the rotating air HPT front seal. And that damage chain? Well, that's what creates a massive safety risk. And hey, don't just take my word for how serious this is. EASA states, and I'm quoting here, that if this isn't corrected, it could lead to an uncontained seal failure, causing significant damage to both the engine and the airplane itself. That right there is why these actions are mandatory.
Okay, so the big question is who needs to be paying attention? Let's pinpoint exactly which engines and aircraft fall under this new proposed directive.
The scope here is pretty wide, actually. It covers three major CFM60 families, the 5B, the 5C, and the 7B. And these aren't some rare engines. They are the workhorses for some of the most common aircraft in the sky. We're talking the entire Airbus A320 family, the A340, and of course, the Boeing 737 Next-Gen series. Now, this is absolutely crucial. EASA splits the affected engines into two buckets. It's not enough to just have the affected part. Group 1A engines have that problem seal plus one of four specific part numbers for the rotating front seal. On the other hand, Group 1B engines have the bad seal, but a different front seal. This distinction is a really big deal because it completely changes the inspection schedule you have to follow. And that brings us right to the heart of the directive. What do you actually have to do? These are the mandatory actions for all the camo and maintenance teams out there. So, what's the plan? What exactly needs to get done to stay compliant and, more importantly, to stay safe? Okay, for those higher-risk Group 1A engines, we're looking at repetitive Borescope inspections, or BSIs. For a CFM56-5C, that first inspection needs to happen within 125 flight cycles, and then you have to do it again every 250 cycles. For the 5B and 7B engines, you get a bit more breathing room. The first check is within 300 cycles, and the repeat interval is every 800 cycles. But wait, it's not just about the on-wing inspections. This next part applies to all of them, both Group 1A and 1B. The next time any of these engines go into the shop for a visit, a detailed inspection of that affected HPT inner stationary seal is mandatory. And you've got to follow the specific steps laid out in the CFM Service Bulletin to a T. So what happens if you actually find something? Well, the AD gives you a very clear playbook. If you find cracks during a Borescope inspection, that aircraft is grounded. Full stop. You have to contact CFM to get approved repair instructions before it can fly again. Now, if during a shop visit you find honeycomb separation, you have to follow the service bulletin for more inspections and replacements. And here's the kicker. Even if you find nothing during the shop visit, you still have to replace the honeycomb as a preventative measure. And here's a bit of good news for long-term planning. Once an engine has gone through that mandatory shop visit inspection and all the corrective actions are done, that's considered a terminating action. What does that mean?
It means those repetitive borescope inspections for the Group 1A engines, you don't have to do them anymore for that specific engine. It's one and done.
Now, to make sure this problem doesn't pop up again, the AD introduces a really strict rule about parts. Once an engine has been inspected and fixed, you are forbidden from ever installing another one of those affected parts on it. And what's more, for any engine that isn't in Group 1, you can't install an affected part from the day the AD becomes effective. Basically, they're quarantining the entire suspect batch of seals.
All right, let's zoom out from the nuts and bolts for a minute and look at what all this means from a management and planning perspective. What's the real-world impact?
So here's the quick and dirty summary. The affected fleet is huge. The main actions are those repetitive BSIs and the mandatory shop visit checks. Now, the operational impact, it's significant. The grounding risk is high. If your crew finds cracks during a BSI, that plane isn't going anywhere. So for the planning teams, this means you've got to get those BSI schedules locked down and make sure your shop visit plans can handle the extra work and potentially some unexpected repairs.
Okay, let's wrap this all up by summarizing your direct obligations. What do you absolutely have to do to make sure you're compliant?
You know, it really boils down to 3 critical steps. Step 1, identify. You've got to figure out exactly which of your engines are Group 1A and which are 1B. Step 2, schedule. Get those required BSIs for your Group 1A engines into the maintenance plan. And Step 3, comply. Make sure those mandatory shop visit actions get done and get done on time for all affected engines.
Look, every operator has to ensure they are fully compliant by the deadlines. This is going to take some tight coordination between your camo, planning, maintenance, and commercial teams. And as always, while this explainer gives you a good breakdown, it's not a replacement for the real thing. For the complete official instructions, you must refer to the official EASA AD text and the related CFM service bulletins.
Subscribe to the AEROPODA YouTube channel. And for any inquiries, feel free to reach out to us at info@aeropoda.com.